In a previous episode, we spoke about the beginning of the unofficial war between China and Japan in 1931. After the Mukden Incident, Japan began forcefully occupying major cities throughout Manchuria and forming an alliance with local Chinese leaders to consolidate control. Chiang Kai-shek knew the Japanese were trying to provoke a full-scale war, but China needed more time to gather and train her forces to face such an enemy. Thus, in the meantime, Chiang Kai-shek ordered Zhang Xueliang to order his forces not to resist and to await negotiations. The Kwantung Army had explicit orders never to advance past the South Manchurian Railway, frustrating the efforts of Lieutenant Colonel Ishiwara Kanji, the mastermind behind the invasion of Manchuria. Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know I now have a Patreon account found at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel. Over there, you can find exclusive Patreon episodes and podcasts based on suggestions from patrons, and other benefits like early access to all of my content, live hangouts, your name in the end credits, and much, much more. So please go check it out. After consolidating the area around the Southern Manchurian Railway, Ishiwara turned his attention towards Jinzhou. Jinzhou became Zhang Xueliang's administrative HQ and civil government after the fall of Mukden, and thus it was there where Chinese forces were concentrating. According to the Japanese sources, Zhang Xueliang began secretly ordering local governments in Manchuria to obey and pay taxes to Jinzhou.
Tax
time.
Sent spies to Japanese-occupied areas, and was plotting the assassination of Japanese and anti-Chiang Kai-shek officials. On October the 8th, Ishiwara led 5 captured Chinese aircraft, part of the 10th Independent Air Squadron from Mukden to raid Jinzhou, stating he was merely performing a reconnaissance. They flew over Jinzhou around 1:40 p.m. and dropped 75 25-kilogram bombs hitting the 28th Division's barracks, government buildings, and Zhang Xueliang's residence. They also took photos of the Chinese defensive positions. The attack had 2 purposes. The first threatened Zhang Xueliang, and the second to threaten Tokyo HQ. The bombing of Jinzhou created a furor in Tokyo, as well as shocked the League of Nations, who until this point were ambivalent to the situation.
We will be very, very angry with you, and we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
Tokyo HQ was obliged to issue a post facto approval of the Kwantung attacks, but they were repeatedly demanding a cease of them anymore.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Rumors emerged Ishiwara and his colleague Itagaki sought to create an independent Manchuria and to use it as a base for a coup d'etat against the Japanese government to usher in a Showa restoration. On October the 18th, War Minister Minamijiro ordered the Kwantung Army by telegram to cease offensives against Manchuria, and they sent Colonel Imamura Hitoshi to make Ishiwara and Itagaki stop their reckless operations. However, when Hitoshi met the 2 men at a restaurant in Mukden, they simply brushed him off. In truth, Ishiwara and Itagaki's plans were endangered, but then in early November they were given a pretext after the forces of Ma Zhanshan damaged the railway bridge at Liaoyang. Ma Zhanshan's hostility gave them a pretext to invade Heilongjiang with their allies led by General Zhang Haipeng. For more information on that, check out my previous episode on the invasion of Manchuria, the Jiangqiao campaign. Tokyo was forced to endorse the action, calling it a defensive operation. After the occupation of the north, another opportunity presented itself in the southwest. The first Tientsin Incident broke out on November the 9th, instigated by Colonel Dohara Kenji, with the help of some anti-Chiang Kai-shek Chinese. A small force attacked the Peace Preservation Corps at Tientsin. Dohara performed the scheme hoping to use the resulting confusion to abduct the former Manchu Emperor, Puyi, so that the Kwantung Army could later place him upon the throne of a new Manchurian state. Dohara requested reinforcements from Tokyo HQ, but they denied the request, so he went to the Kwantung Army for help. The Kwantung Army stated that they would coordinate an attack upon Tientsin to help, but only if a pretext was provided. To pull off such a maneuver would require first seizing Jinzhou. Then a second Tientsin incident occurred on November the 26th. The Japanese barracks in Tientsin were attacked by Chinese soldiers at 8:20 p.m., but this was another false flag operation orchestrated by none other than Tohara. Upon receiving the news, General Hanja Shigeru decided to assist the Tientsin Army, whom they deemed were in danger. The 4th Mixed Brigade and the 2nd Infantry Battalion of the 2nd Division, about 10,000 men strong, advanced upon 13 armored trains along the Beiping-Mukden Railway. The Kwantung Army also asked for some help from the Korea Army, and Commander Hayashi prepared a mixed brigade to cross the border. The force got within 30 kilometers of Jinzhou when War Minister General Minamijiro ordered them to immediately withdraw. The Kwantung Army continued, however, and got into some skirmishes with Chinese defenders around the Tailing River and Takushan. Tokyo HQ began sending countless furious messages demanding the Kwantung Army withdraw from the Jinzhou area, and by the 28th, they finally did. Prime Minister Wakatsuki Reiziro had begun negotiating with the Republic of China through the League of Nations, who proposed a neutral zone should be established between China proper and Manchuria. The Chinese, British, American, and French were offering to withdraw their troops from Jinzhou to Shanhaiguan if the Manchurian Incident was settled and Japan would pledge not to violate the area. Thus Tokyo HQ favored this policy and ordered the Kwantung Army to pull out. Zhang Xueliang had promised to pull his men out of Jinzhou by December the 7th, but this never really happened. The Japanese then began negotiating to make Jinzhou a neutral zone. The Kwantung Army intercepted 2 Chinese telegrams indicating Zhang Xueliang was strengthening the defenses at Jinzhou and that Nanjing was requesting he not pull his men out. The telegrams were sent to Tokyo HQ, who agreed the Chinese were acting in a treacherous manner. The Japanese ambassador then told U.S. Secretary Henry Stimson, "It would be very difficult to withhold the army from advancing again." Stimson replied, "Such actions would convince the American public that Japan's excuse for her incursions, namely that she was combating bandit attacks, was a ruse to destroy the last fragment of Chinese authority in Manchuria. It would be extremely difficult to ask China to withdraw her army from her own territory." Thus began the Jinzhou crisis. Nationalist Minister of Finance, TV Sun, sent a telegram to Zhang Xueliang advising, "Any Japanese attack on Jinzhou should be offered utmost resistance." And the American minister in China publicly expressed the view that Zhang Xueliang would resist at Jinzhou if attacked. Yet to all the observers, it was evident Japan was intent on taking Jinzhou and was just waiting for any pretext to do so. The Japanese even began bombing disused sections of train track on December the 10th, disrupting traffic on the Beiping-Mukden railway line, hinting at their intentions. On December the 13th, Prime Minister Wakatsuki resigned, having failed to control the military. A new cabinet led by Prime Minister Tsuyoshi Inukai resumed negotiations with Nanjing, but on December the 15th, Chiang Kai-shek resigned as chairman of the Nanjing government, prompting Sun Ke to lead a weak interim government. Preoccupied with its own survival, the Nanjing government had no time to deal with the Jinzhou crisis. On December the 15th, Tokyo HQ telegraphed Mukden instructing the Kwantung Army to synchronize an assault on Jinzhou with an attack upon the bandits. Tokyo HQ even agreed to send some reinforcements from Korea to Japan. The 20th Division, the 38th Mixed Brigade of the 19th Division both crossed the border from Korea, and the 8th Mixed Brigade, 10th Division came over from Japan. With this, the Kwantung Army had been bolstered to around 60,450 men. On December the 17th, the Japanese began attacking what they called soldier bandits in Faku and Changchun. In reality, it was a prelude to an assault upon Jinzhou. Then on December the 18th, Japanese aircraft bombed Dangliao, killing 3 Chinese and throwing the city into a panic. By December the 26th, all preparations for an assault against Jinzhou were complete. On December the 28th, Hangzhou ordered an anti-bandit drive west of the Liao River. Hangzhou insisted publicly they were just clearing the country of bandits, but also added if the Chinese forces at Jinzhou were to withdraw, they would not be molested. While the Japanese and their collaborationist allies spread out along the South Manchurian Railway to clear out pockets of resistance, from Mukden, the 12th Division, led by Lieutenant General Jiro Tamon, advanced towards Jinzhou, supported by squadrons of bombers. Japanese intelligence estimated Zhang Xueliang had 84,000 defenders, 58 pieces of artillery, with 2 separate lines of defense for the city. The first line of defense ran 20 miles north of the city. It was a series of trenches aimed to halt the Japanese advance at the Tailing River Bridge on the Beiping-Mukden Railway. The second line of defense was earthworks and entrenchments completely encircling Jinzhou. The weather at this time was negative 30 degrees, and the IJA forces wore white winter camouflage uniforms. IJA reconnaissance aircraft reported a force of around 3,000 Honghuzi were waiting to ambush them around the Panshan County. Taimon's forces brushed aside the Honghuzi in a series of small skirmishes and continued their advance to Goubangzi, 50 kilometers north of Jinzhou. By December the 31st, the Japanese vanguard reached 15 kilometers from Jinzhou on the banks of the Tailing River. Taimon halted, waited for the rest of the 2nd Division to catch up. Then Taimon's men began erecting an elaborate system of microphones to broadcast the sounds of the upcoming battle to Tokyo. It seems this might have been a ploy to demoralize the defenders, and it certainly worked as Zhang Xueliang's men began to withdraw. It turned out on December the 30th, Zhang Xueliang had been given orders to withdraw from Jinzhou. The last Chinese troop train departed Jinzhou at 11 a.m. on the morning of January the 1st of 1932. With that was the last vestiges of Zhang Xueliang's power in Manchuria. The assault upon Jinzhou came at the worst possible time for China. Chiang Kai-shek was momentarily out of office. He did not have the full backing of the Nanjing government, nor of many of his generals. It is also likely Chiang Kai-shek knew Zhang Xueliang's forces in Jinzhou would have been greatly outmatched and potentially annihilated. What was important was to keep the situation from becoming an official war, so he could build up China's forces to fight back. With the fall of Jinzhou, the Northern China Army retreated south of the Great Wall into Hubei province. The Japanese then occupied Chinaguan, thus southern Manchuria was now fully under their control.